So New Year's is a wonderful time of reflection. It's typically a time that we think about resolutions or how we're not going to do them this year because it never works anyway. But it's also kind of an arbitrary boundary, right? It's a mark in time. It's a chance to say, well, hey, why not now? Why not think about this today? And I think even though it is sort of, random, it still offers us a chance to think about the ways that we might hope for the future. As I think about the past year, I think if 2016 has taught us anything, it is that we have to be prepared for anything. It has been a year of surprise. It has been a year of tragedy for many, a year of great delight, a year of deaths of those that we felt very close to, and a year of births and new life. It's been a chance to remember that life is an unpredictable spouse, that no matter what happens, we will always be surprised. We combine this time of New Year's with the story of Epiphany, with a story of light shining in the darkness, of strange and mysterious happenings of people who were not Jewish coming to worship a king of the Jews, and the king who thought he was king of the Jews getting a little shaky in his boots. It's a story that shakes us up, but also gives us hope. It gives us that reminder that there is new life, even when tyrants rule and dictators create havoc. So I wanted to think a little bit about what it would be like to take a journey of a magi. What would it mean to put ourselves in the shoes of those people? The story is just a few lines long. This is all we ever hear of those magi. It's only in one gospel. And so hopefully for you, the sermon will be not very long too. But I think it's worth pondering just a little bit. One of the questions is, why were the wise men wise? Why would Matthew call them wise? For they were people who were practicing probably another religion. They were people who studied the stars in a way that the Jews did not. But they were people in whom Matthew found wisdom. So as we look at this story, I think there are a few key things that we can pull out from the wise men's wisdom that we may be able to share in ourselves. The first, and what I hope that we begin with this Ignatian examen today, is that they readied themselves. They were studiers of the stars. They were prepared for the miraculous. They had eyes open and curiosity ready. They were not afraid. They were not closed down to what new things might transpire. They braved long journeys and harsh weather just to have a chance to worship newness, to worship new life. One of the ways that we can prepare ourselves is to do these, what Ignatius called spiritual exercises. Now, I know we talk a lot about exercise starting New Year's Day. Target is completely full of new yoga mats and tennis shoes and all that kind of thing. But what if we thought about making spiritual exercise a part of this process for us? It is not separated from the exercise of the body. In fact, Ignatius is one of the patron saints of athletes because he was a soldier and felt like it was really important to keep your body and mind and spirit all fit, all ready to receive whatever good news would be there. But if we become ready, if we increase our study, if we allow ourselves to be curious and to ask questions, we may be beginning to be wise. The second thing they had was great courage. Now, a second ago, I said they were not afraid, but actually, I don't know that. They might have been terrified. But their actions were those of courage. Their actions were those of crossing borders, of being ready to face dictators and their wrath. They could easily have been killed for asking Herod where the king of the Jews would be located. And yet, they had courage. They decided to pursue knowledge and wisdom and wonder instead of drowning in fear. They were willing to follow, and they were willing to sacrifice significantly. They were willing to leave their homes and their regular toileting practices and their regular toothbrushes and all of these things that would have been comforts. They left so that they could challenge themselves and find this new thing. They were willing to abandon whatever was comfortable but not life-giving. And that is one of the biggest challenges of being wise, to let go of the comfortable so that we might pursue new life. The scene reminded me a little bit of a scene from one of my favorite movies. This has been a time of thinking a lot about Star Wars with Carrie Fisher's death and thinking about Princess Leia. But the one I remember is from the Mel Brooks spoof on Star Wars, Spaceballs. This is one of my favorite movies, and in it there is there is a princess named Princess Vespa, who does not exactly have the courage and grit of Princess Leia. And she gets kidnapped, and these folks have come to save her, and they crash land on this moon, and there's only a certain amount of daylight left, and they have to get to shelter before it gets really cold at night. And Princess Vespa requires all the people who are with her, her rescuers, to carry her luggage for her. This includes giant steam trunks and rolling bags and all sorts of really heavy stuff. And these guys are very, willing to do that for a while. And then it's hot, and they're very far from shelter. And finally, one of the guys says, "I give up. What is in this?" And he opens up the trunk, and inside is a hairdryer this big. It is an industrial strength hairdryer, she says, and it just says hot air on the front of it. And he said, "Why are we carrying a hairdryer?" And she said, "I absolutely have to have it. I cannot live without it." And he tosses it aside and says, "Get going, princess." But, there are things that we think we need. There are things that feel necessary. I mean, this was the 80s. Hairdryers were a big deal. No self-respecting woman would go out without having dried her hair into some enormous configuration. So to let that go and to march on and be willing perhaps even to be not beautiful for the sake of new life is a challenge. The other thing that the wise men had that is absolutely critical right now is a sense of wonder and joy. You cannot go on a journey for new life without being ready to experience joy, without having in your bag not your hairdryer, but instead a kernel of wonder, a chance to say, "This is gonna change me. This is gonna be good. It might hurt a little. My hair might get messed up, but this is gonna be good." The wise men went with their ears to the ground, but their eyes to the sky. They had singularity of purpose. They were put on this earth to worship and wonder, to go forward and seek the gifts that they had no idea would be there. And they brought what they had, but what they got was the fulfillment of a dream of seeing new life. That singularity of purpose with joy, to go forward, to know that what God has for you will be good. that what God has for you is not some deep punishment, but in fact an inbreaking of new life, is to go with hope and wisdom. To know that you are not beholden to any ruler, you are not beholden to any rules or strictures that would keep you from God. You are beholden only to searching out love and truth. And it may require some resistance to evil. It may require going home by another way. It may require some challenge. But it will be the revelation of new life. A friend of mine, a friend of both of ours, Jennifer Mills Knutson, was a pastor in Jeffersonville, Indiana until June of this year. And she remarked on Facebook last night that her mantra for last year that she established on New Year's Day of 2016 was a quote from Frederick Buechner that was, "Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Do not be afraid." For Jennifer, that was very true this year. It was a year when she left her home in Jeffersonville and took a call as a pastor in London, England, started a whole new journey, had to do immigration, all this stuff, and then Brexit happened, and her congregation was in great turmoil. And then weeks before she left, she got a diagnosis that she had breast cancer. And she had to go and start treatment in a new health system that she had never known about, and she had to trust in ways she had never known. At the same time, she said, her son made the all-star team in his baseball tournament. And so she was able to avoid thinking about the breast cancer by cheering on her son. And she said, this truly has been a year of beautiful and terrible things. It has been one that I could never have predicted. But you know what? I was able to mostly keep from being afraid by remembering that God is with us always, no matter what. And so she said, my mantra for 2017, the same darn thing. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Do not be afraid. Today, as we celebrate communion, we're going to take a little journey of the Magi. You will have the things that you are ready to give up. They will go in this brown paper bag, and after the service, we are going to burn them outside where it's safe. And I checked, the burn ban has been lifted. Don't worry, Dave. Let them go. Let them go with the pieces of the wall that we have knocked down all through Christmas. Let them go with the barriers that have kept you from being close to the Christ child. Once you have let go, come forward and receive. You will receive the body and blood of Christ. You will receive that new life that brings into you new power and wonder, and sometimes the screams of a small child, but also the wonder of a small child. Then I will invite you, if you like, to be anointed with oil of frankincense and myrrh, a reminder of Jesus' journey and of the ways in which even those beautiful and terrible things turned into gifts of new life. And finally, I will invite you to take a star. These are gifts of Epiphany. These are words on a star that you don't get to see as you pick it up. Just pray for guidance and pick up a star, and that will be your word for the year. Put it someplace you might run into it occasionally, and let yourself see what gifts it will reveal as you follow the star of 2017 and God's new life. Let us follow the light together. Amen.